Get in so fast. George, how did you do that? All right, I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide, and I will apologize in advance because I am a little bit sick, so I don't know how well I will be able to do this, but let's see. Hopefully live should be working. Good morning. All right, Ita, nice to see you there. All right, live is working, and yeah, I guess we should be okay. All right, so again, I apologize if you hear me coughing or something, and my voice is not perfect. That's why I didn't do a video yesterday, but I thought I would do it today. So yesterday I sent an email to subscribers. Oh, Happy Snail says, Ohio gozaimasu, Olympia. Hi, teacher. Nice to see you guys there. Hope you're feeling good. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Just a little bit. I think my older daughter, Aria, got me sick. Let's see. Yeah. I like, kazeo. So I'm not feeling too good. I'm okay, but my younger daughter, yeah, I have some water over here. Well, got his own chimpo moyo. Mariate kita ne. Genki, chotto genki janai kedo ne. What's up, Bruno? Nice to see you, Ephraim. All right. So yeah, I think she just, like little kids, you know, they just kind of cough on you. They're just like, like just. So I will talk with my kids and I will say, hey, how are you? And they just look at me like, and just. So that's what I think I got. But I should be okay. And if I die, it's for you guys. Just remember that. All right. So I wanted to make this video because yesterday I sent an email to many subscribers and asked them, actually I wanted to ask them if they understand what their problem is and how they get fluent. Because I've spent the past 20 years trying to explain this to people, and I get a little bit better every day at doing that. Only a little bit, I think. I don't know if maybe I'm a slow learner or it just takes me a while, but this is it's a complex problem with many pieces. But if I can really explain it well, I think I can help a lot more people. So a lot of people get it already. A lot of people understand what their issue is, but today I wanted to talk about that in more detail. So again, yesterday I sent that mail to subscribers and I basically said, like speaking from me personally, my personal experience as a learner of Japanese and also a teacher for many years, what I noticed is that all the things that I thought were the reason why I couldn't speak. So there were many reasons why I thought I couldn't speak, and I'll explain more of those shortly. But none of those were actually the reason. And the real reason was just because I didn't understand what I learned. It was really that simple. So I want to talk about that. And I think probably the best way to explain this to people is looking at, I don't really have a good name for this. Maybe you can think of a good name for this. But it's basically a cycle that keeps you stuck. So you're continuing to learn, but you never develop fluency. So I really want to explain why this happens. And there's basically three pieces to this. And the whole thing, it's a cycle that just goes around and around and around. So the first part is the learning. So how you learn. And usually what happens in English, like traditional English classes, happy to know you didn't get an email from me. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it went out to everybody. Maybe depending on, I don't know. Maybe it didn't go out to every single person on the list, but I sent it to a few people because I wanted to get their feedback, and then I figured I would make a video like this and explain that. Yes, Minnie, I just started. So we're starting the video right now, but this will be available live for people, or the replay will be available for people. Again, pardon me, I'm a little bit sick. So if I don't speak properly, that's the reason. I'm really struggling in my mind. But I was excited to make this video, and so that's why I'm here today. Anyway, so we begin with learning, everybody begins with learning. It's new information you need to get. You don't know the language, you need to learn the language. But the problem with the basic learning that most people do is they don't really understand and they don't feel confident about what they learn. So because they learn, and usually the learning is like it's happening through studying rules, and especially through translations. And because of this, you don't really understand. So because you don't really understand, you don't feel confident. All right, so you don't, I'm gonna have to make this box bigger over here. So you don't understand and don't feel confident. So you don't really feel confident about what you're learning, so you don't speak. All right, and now usually what happens at this point is they just think, like most learners think, okay, I just need to learn more. And then that's how this process repeats itself. So you learn something, but you don't really understand it, and so you don't speak, and you think you need to speak to become fluent. So you don't speak, but you can't get fluent, and you really just stay stuck in this process. And it's really frustrating for people because they don't understand why this happens. So how can they keep learning more, but not actually approach fluency? How can they keep learning more and more and more, but they never feel more fluent? But this is the reason why. So I really wanted to make this clear. I didn't explain all this in the email yesterday, but this is basically, again, the learning process. We'll just call this English as a second language, which is what usually people are doing. So they're learning English through their native language. And so they're studying rules, they're getting some translations, and they're not really getting the real language. So another thing I forgot to put up here, we'll just say real speech. So often the language that you get, even like right now, the way I'm speaking to you is different than how people would speak in a regular conversation, all right? So the speed is different, I'm being more clear, speaking more clearly, and also, like I'm not, mumbling as I just explained, but the vocabulary is often different. So even if I'm trying to explain something, it's just so you can understand, but it is different than the way people normally speak. So if we've got all of these things here, it's almost like there's a filter between the real language and what you're learning, all right, if that makes sense. So like here's you, and you're trying to learn, and there's like a filter there between you and the language. I'll just put this over here. So here's like a person. Actually, I'll put the person over here. So we'll just say like here is the lesson. So here's the lesson, and then it's almost like some kind of filter between you and the language. So you're not learning the real language. You're learning like a form of it, a kind of the language, like the textbook English. And you're trying to analyze the rules, but you're not actually understanding the rules, so you can use them without thinking. All right. Does everybody get this idea? All right. I really want to make it clear why this happens, because a lot of people think that they can't get fluent because they don't speak, or they don't learn enough, or they're not young enough, or they don't live in an English-speaking country, or they're not married, or they don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend or something who's a native speaker or who speaks fluently. But my point is that you can have all of those things. So you could be living in an English-speaking country, like many people do. You could also be married to a native English speaker. And you could try to speak every day, but you could still not be fluent if you're learning this way. Okay? So before I go any further and just talk about those, like the kind of response to this, I want to make sure everybody understands what I'm talking about. Hello, Nadia says, hello from Argentina. I'm hearing you with my son. He is 10 years old, and he loves to learn English. That's nice. Very cool. Yes, we have actually lots of students in Argentina. Hello from Morocco. Dream and make it. Is anyone want to learn English to more advanced? I feel stuck in intermediate. I'm an IELTS aspirant. I wrote my IELTS once. Let's see, I just want to improve my speaking. Yes, so that's what this video is about. It's about improving your speaking. Ganshim is, so the traditional way of learning is really a pain in the ass. What do you think? Yes, and so I'm trying to explain why, where the trouble is coming from. But I want to make this as simple as possible. The basic idea is that how you learn is how you speak. So if you're learning and you're studying rules and translations and you don't really understand, then you won't feel confident speaking. And this is the same thing for native English speakers as well. So if a native child is maybe learning some grammar or something they heard from an adult and they don't really understand that, they might repeat that, but they don't really understand what they're saying. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so like the traditional method, yeah, people get it though. Drew, can you please teach us more idioms and slang? So I teach like thousands and thousands of things like that in Fluent for Life, if you remember that. But also you can just find lots of that on my channel already. So you can find many videos talking about slang and other things on the channel. So just search that if you're looking for slang idioms. I started a slang alphabet series of videos, but I didn't finish it. That was years ago. But there are a lot of videos in that series that will teach you some great slang and idioms as well. All right, so I really want to make sure everybody understands this, because if you don't understand this, you will just stay stuck doing this thing. Now, I want to contrast this with how natives are learning the language. I want to contrast this with how natives are learning the language. So let's see if I got enough space over that. So let's just put natives up here, if that fits. So what natives are doing when they learn is they're actually trying to learn the real language that people are using in real life. And the main difference between natives and English learners who are trying to learn, especially as adults, is they're not learning through translations. So if you think about when you're teaching a child a language, it's not possible to learn or teach them through translations because they don't know the other language. So you couldn't use translations anyway. So if it's not possible to learn translations, the only way to teach them is to make the language understandable all in the language that they're learning, all right? And so if you look at the way they learn actually helps them understand what they're learning. And because they understand, they feel confident, and that's why they speak. So in both of these cases, you've got the way that a native speaker learns and the way that a student learns. And a native actually feels confident, and they feel confident first. So this process is the same whether you are a learner or an English student or a native, it doesn't matter. And I want to make it clear that the people usually say that natives get fluent because they speak. And it's actually the opposite. They actually understand and feel confident because of how they learn, and that's why they speak, all right? So the process goes like this. It doesn't go the other way around. You don't start speaking to learn the language. You learn the language and then start speaking. And even native speakers, if they don't understand something, they will not feel confident speaking about it. It doesn't matter if it's regular conversation topic that you don't know much about, or if it's a child that they're, again, trying to, maybe they hear a grammar point or something, but they can't quite use it, they don't feel confident using it, and so they don't speak. And I noticed this with my own children and any children I've taught over the years, that you can see them, they want to say something, but they feel shy about saying it. And this is native English speakers or native speakers of other languages. So even children, native speakers, don't like making mistakes. They don't want to say the wrong thing and embarrass themselves or whatever. So this is not just for English learners that have this problem, all right? But I want you to really understand here that speaking is the result of this process. So if you can learn and you understand what you learn and you feel confident about learning, then you speak, okay? But this process here of you actually understanding, the way to speak, how you feel confident about something. Do Do you think you'll use it correctly? If you think about that, then you're actually knowing whether you can speak fluently or not. All right. So the fluency is actually developed over here. So the process of fluency development, it's actually like this. It's how you learn, and then do you feel confident? I should actually make this like, it's really more like this. And then there's a little bit of practice you get from the speaking, but you can tell like people don't get fluent from speaking because speaking doesn't really teach you anything new. It's just using what you know. So if you can learn more and you feel more confident, then you speak. All right, does everybody get that? So even if you speak, you might live in an English-speaking country and have lots of opportunities to speak, but you still won't communicate confidently and fluently if you don't understand what you're learning. All right, so that's really the main idea of this, and I wanted to make sure people understand that. So the reason most people struggle to speak, it's not because of how much speaking practice they get, or it's not because of how much they study or where they live or how old they are. It's really just how they learn. That's the main difference. So native children and adults are learning the same way. Okay? And hopefully this makes sense that like the thing you really need to focus on is the learning, not on the speaking, because the speaking is the result of how you learn. It's a natural process, a natural result of you understanding what you're saying. And you can, again, remember this in your native language as well. You probably would not feel confident speaking about something that you don't know much about. It's the same way in English, all right? So let me answer some questions, see if people are getting this. Let's see. Excuse me. Yes, my voice will probably sound a little bit different because I am a little bit sick. It happens. All right, Elaine says, I need a group for have English conversation every day. Elaine, no, you do not. No, you do not. You just need to learn the right way. You need to understand what you're learning. So even if you have a group of people to practice speaking, how is that going to help you improve if you don't really understand what you're saying? All right? So speaking is the result. And what most people do, they don't understand what they learn, so they don't speak, and they think, well, I guess maybe I don't know enough words, and I just have to keep learning more. So that's why most people just go through this process again and again. But what natives are doing, natives learn, they understand, so they speak. So children are getting all of this input, they're really learning a lot, they're getting all these different examples from different people, in different ways, different grammar tenses, and all of those examples are really helping them understand the language, and that's when they feel confident speaking. All right, let's see here. All right, Suck says, sometimes my teacher says even between native speakers, there are good and bad English speakers. Well, sure. Yeah, you will find like people who are good at speaking, and just like there are people who are professional speakers. Some people are very good at speaking, other people not so much. You know, it's a skill you can improve even with native speakers. All right, so my dream is to be fluent, says Elaine. That's it. You change how you learn and you change how you speak. It's really that simple. Lucas says, Brazilians everywhere. Yes, they are all over the place. All right, Eunice says, Teacher Drew, to improve my English, do I really need to practice it every day, at least listening? So again, the practicing is really here. It's how you learn that gets you fluent. You don't need to practice speaking because let's imagine what that is. What do you mean by practicing speaking? Like I'm just repeating things that I hear? Is that really going to help me? That's not going to help me learn more. That's not going to help me improve my understanding of the language. It might help me just like practice moving my mouth in the right way, but that's a very small part of speaking. If you don't understand what you're saying, even if your accent is maybe not perfect, then you're not going to feel confident speaking. It's really that simple. So the practicing every day, yes, you should be learning. That's why members of Fluent for Life, they do that a little bit more every day. So if they're learning the right way, they will naturally feel confident and want to speak when that opportunity comes, okay? So that's simple. So you don't need to spend time practicing speaking. You don't need to find like a group of English speaking, I don't know, partners or whatever. The speaking is not the way to improve. It's a way to use what you know once you have improved, all right? So the speaking is the last part in this process. It's not the first. Let's see. Yeah, so again, Eunice, don't worry about like finding time to like practice speaking or whatever. The practice is the learning. That's how you get fluent. All right, so again, sometimes I try to think in my own language and translate to English, but my teacher says to think in English, not in your own language. Yes. And so again, the reason people translate is because they don't actually understand what they're learning all in English. If I'm teaching my daughters English, I don't use Japanese to teach them English. And like Japanese parents don't teach English to their kids using Japanese. Like you don't mix up the languages like that. You just learn English in English. So that's what natives do, and it's very easy for you to do the same thing. All right, so that's what I teach. So that's, again, learning English as a first language where you go directly to the language rather than trying to learn through your native language. So if you're thinking and translating in your head, it's because you're learning through translations. All right, hopefully that's clear for people. So how you learn is how you speak. If you learn through translations, you will think through translations when you speak. Okay? Hopefully that's clear. So if you would like to stop doing that, you just learn more in English, and naturally you will stop translating in your head. All right, Ivan says, hi Drew, I have a problem with live session because I never know at what time it starts. Well, don't feel bad about that, Ivan. I don't have a schedule for these. Usually I do them on Thursdays and sometimes Mondays as well, Japan time. But I don't have a schedule for them, but it doesn't matter if you miss the live video. You can just watch the replay, and then you can still make comments on the replay if you'd like. Dilnoza says, some people think that teaching grammar is becoming not important. I mean, you can learn language without learning grammar or vocabulary. What is your opinion? I don't know what that means. Like the language is grammar and vocabulary. That's what a language is. So the important thing is how you learn the grammar. So for example, if I'm trying to teach you grammar like word order and what words do we use to express certain things, it's much easier if you can learn that directly and you understand it intuitively and naturally rather than trying to study a bunch of words. And what usually happens is you need to get a lot of varied examples before you understand something. So if I get one example of a grammar point, I don't really feel confident using it. Like there's a textbook I have it's just for like the Japanese language proficiency test. And I don't really like using it, but again, I don't have anyone to teach me Japanese the way I teach English. So I have to like create these lessons for myself, and it takes me more time to do that. But usually what happens in these textbooks is they will give you like a new grammar point, and they will give you some maybe even new vocabulary, and they will tell you only one or two examples and then move to the next thing. And so they're telling you the rules. It's like, okay, I understand the rules logically, but I can't actually use what I'm learning in conversations. So I can't use it fluently. And that's because I don't really understand what I'm learning. It's like I know it, but it's not, and I still don't know the best way to describe this. Maybe if you think of a good idea, let me know. But basically, it's like you know the grammar, like you know vocabulary, but it doesn't come to you automatically and correctly when you need it in conversations. So it's important to remember grammar is essential, but how you learn grammar is really the difference. So maybe if I give an example of this, it will be easier for people. But if I'm trying to explain, like, I could explain like the grammar of, I don't know, let's just say like to remove something, like just basic verbs, and I could explain a lot, like, so we want to remove the cap of the marker by like pulling this way and doing that. I'm trying to explain a lot, but it's much easier if I just show you how it works, okay? And this is a basic example, but you learn more higher level examples through stories and really just getting lots of examples of things. And it's the many examples that push that information deep into your brain so you understand it like a native. And that's really the point. The point is not to think about it like a language student, like you know the grammar rule name. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's the present continuous or whatever. But a native speaker doesn't usually know the term present continuous, but they know how to say like, I'm going somewhere, you know. So again, the point is not, it's not to try to like learn and study grammar, it's to understand grammar naturally so you can use it. And that's why like the speaking part, that tells you if you're learning correctly or not. Because if you do all this and you still don't speak, then how you're learning is actually stopping you from speaking, okay? So the traditional way, it's giving you the translations and you're not really learning the real language. And also, you just don't understand what people are saying. And that's why you don't feel confident speaking. So the traditional language learning system, the traditional like English as a second language approach, it actually stops you from communicating, okay? So you might know the language logically, but you're not actually expressing yourself confidently and fluently, all right? So grammar is essential, but how you learn grammar is important. And if you notice with children, I'm not giving my children a textbook or a grammar like exercise or something like that. I'm just giving them lots of examples like take off the cap, take off your shirt, take off your hat, take off your glasses, okay? And as they learn that, they learn like, oh, look, take off. And they're learning grammar. That's an example of grammar and pronunciation and vocabulary, listening. And because you're doing all those things, you're building speaking confidence and fluency. That's how it works, all right? So yes, grammar is essential, but how you learn grammar is important. All right, let's see. All right, teacher, speak more formal than, like the word, asks Lucas, like the word speak more formal than talk? No, not necessarily. Remember that, and this is another point that's related to this, when you're learning English as a first language, you stop thinking about the vocabulary by itself, like the word talk versus the word speak, because they mean different things in different situations. And so it's important to always connect the vocabulary with some kind of situation. So right now, I could be giving a talk. This is like giving a talk about learning English. I'm not like, we don't say giving a speak, I'm giving a talk. I'm giving a talk about something. So I'm explaining something. But in general, if you're like speaking or talking with your friends, both of those, they really could mean the same thing. So the vocabulary by itself doesn't mean anything. It's the vocabulary connected with some kind of situation. Let's see. Ryan says, confidence is not about knowing it all. Yeah, I think like a good, I think I understand what you're saying. The basic idea is if you don't feel confident about what you know, then you won't feel confident saying it, all right? So the speaking part comes from feeling confident. So if you don't feel confident, that's why you don't speak. That's why a lot of people are nervous and shy about speaking, because they're thinking about translations and grammar rules and all these things in their head when they're trying to speak. And so they get stuck. They forget words and they're worrying about making mistakes. And all these things going on in their head after the conversation is finished, then later they're like, oh, I remembered the word I wanted to say in conversations. And I know this because it's happened to me before. It's happened to me a lot. And so when I changed the way I learned and started learning Japanese as a first language instead, that's when it finally made sense. Like I just need to understand what I'm learning and then I will feel confident about using it. All right, Adnan says, what is the best way to learn a single word? Well, you learn an individual meaning for a word comes from a situation. And so you don't think about the vocabulary by itself, you think about when we use something. Okay, so like even the word go, it could have lots of different meanings depending on the situation. So it's a short word, a simple word, a very common word, but the meaning can be different depending on when we use it. So I might say like, I'm going to the park. you know, like I'm actually like moving from one place to the other. Or I can talk about like the computer won't go, or like the car won't go. It means there's a problem, like it won't move, it won't start, all right? So it's the same word, but the meaning is slightly different. So we always want to connect situations with vocabulary. And this is how natives are learning the vocabulary. Let me make this a little bit clearer. A big part of this, like the learning process for non-natives, so the ESL, English as a second language approach, is we begin with a word in your native language, and then you translate that into English. So whatever, we'll just use Japanese as an example. So if you have a Japanese word and you want to say something, then you first think in Japanese and translate in your head, and then you think of the words in English, and then you speak. Okay? But what natives are doing, and people who speak fluently, so learning English as a first language, they begin with a situation, and then what are the words that you might use to express that? So here's like this English word, here's another word, or a different phrase, or whatever, all right? So just like this example of like take off the cap, or put on the cap, so take off, put on. I could remove the cap. I could take away the cap. I could throw off the cap. There are lots of different ways I could express that. So it just depends on what is the situation, and I might think about different ways of doing this. So when I mentioned before that natives are getting lots of different examples, what happens is like, you know, maybe one day they get this example. So there's a situation, like I'm greeting someone, and then someone says, hello. And then the next day I'm greeting someone and they say, hey. All right, so just to make this a bit easier, so hello, hey, hi, and that's how are you? So all of these are different ways of expressing the same situation. And natives are learning these, and that's why they're prepared for conversations, because people say different things in different conversations. But over here, the ESL way, it only gives you one way to speak. So you have like, there's one word you're thinking, it's like, you know, Japanese would be konnichiwa. And you think, like, if you look in the textbook, it's just hello. So konnichiwa, hello. And because you get that, you're not prepared for how are you, hi, hey, how's it going, how you been, all these other things that you hear in a real conversation. So instead of learning like this, if you want to understand vocabulary like a native and be prepared for situations in real life, so real life communication, you have to learn like this. You have to get lots of different examples, listen to different native speakers, so not just one teacher like this. And this is, again, why I don't teach private English lessons, even though I get asked, you know, people ask me for these all the time. People have tried to get me to like fly down to their country or whatever and teach them privately. And I say, like, it's not going to help you. Like, I mean, I'll, you know, be able to teach you a lot, but you need not just one person, not just one native giving you examples. You need to get real examples from lots of different people. Okay? So if you hear the real language from lots of different people, that's how you're learning. You're learning the grammar and pronunciation and all of that. You're learning it naturally instead of trying to study the rules or different pieces of the language by themselves. All right. Hopefully that's making sense. These are good questions, though. Let's see. All right, hopefully, I think I also answered that other question there. Let's see. So Eunice says, I would say that your live stream is one of the best interactive ones I've seen on YouTube. I like the way that you control your class. Thanks. Well, I guess it's easier because like nobody is like, you guys could be yelling at your screen right now, but I can't hear it. So I don't know if this is much about like controlling the class over here, but I'm trying to teach something, and the only difficult thing about live classes like this is I can't see the reaction in your face as I'm saying something. So usually if I'm talking with my kids or if I'm in a live classroom, I can see the students and I can see if they understand something or not. So it's very clear in their face. But here I need to ask people, I need to look at your chats and see what people are saying. Okay, do they understand what I'm saying or not? All right. But usually it's easier to do. It's easier to do in a live class, but also you get people making noise and things like that. Sergio says, Drew, your lives unlocked my English. Glad to hear it. I couldn't understand anything. Now I'm able to understand people speaking. Fantastic. Yeah, glad to hear it. Yeah, so there's nothing magical about this process. It's really just like do what natives are doing and you will start speaking more like a native. Okay, so stop learning English as a second language and learn it as a first language. All right, Malaya says, it is the first time I heard from you. You are 100% right. Thank you. Well, you're too kind. Let's see. Oh, you didn't wear my favorable shirt. Yes, this is actually a new shirt. I got a new white shirt. Eunice says, can you teach us a little bit how to control a class? Eunice, what kind of class are you teaching? You have trouble controlling your lesson or whatever. Explain more about that. Predatory squirrel. Uh-oh. Chasing those nuts over there, the predatory squirrel. What do natives learn? Well, they learn the same things that non-natives learn, but they also learn the way people really speak. So native speakers are also learning textbook English and that same kind of thing that you would learn in a classroom, but they're also learning the real speech, the idioms and the phrasal verbs and all of that you hear in real conversations. And also, they're learning it in a different way. So they're getting lots of examples, and it's all of those examples that really make the language intuitive and easy for you to use. So it's not trying to learn the grammar logically. You really just need to see it or to get lots of examples or hear stories or other things like that make the language understandable for you. When will you finally expect how to learn properly? What do you mean by that, predatory squirrel? Let me know. What do you think about American pranks? Sometimes my spare time I watch pranks. Yeah, it's fun to prank people. Let's see. Abdul Rahman says, please press like everyone if you may. Thank you. Oh, well, thank you very much. Yes, click the like button. It's always appreciated. Aran says, the good news is that we can change how we are learning. Yep, and you can change that anytime. All right, Tucker says, I try to remember 5 words, idioms, and some other grammar part every day, and then I try to use them when I speak, but I forgot things very easily. Is there an easy method to learn English, Drew? Please help. Yes, what I'm explaining here is the easier method. So in this method, like, it's really on me to teach you so you become fluent. So if I teach you well, then you will use that language because you understand what I'm saying. And you're getting lots of examples, not from me only, but from lots of other people as well. So that's how you learn. So you learn English as a first language rather than learning it as a second language. Sandra says, I learn a lot with your class. Thank you very much, Drew. It's my pleasure. Can you please recommend a good grammar book? No, I will not. So again, like a good grammar book is not what you need to learn English. It's more like grammar by itself is a little bit trickier because you're beginning with the grammar point rather than like when would you use something. So a native is thinking, they're not thinking about grammar points, they're just thinking, when do I use something? And then the grammar is the result of that. So again, they're thinking about the situation and then what would be the grammar, what would be the English you use for that. So as an example, if I'm doing something right now, then I would use the present continuous. So I would, like, we use the term present continuous, but a native doesn't think about it like that. They're just like, oh, well, I'm doing it right now. I'm walking, I'm talking, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, I'm playing, I'm going. Okay? So all those things, they understand it from the situation because they've seen lots of examples of people doing things right now, and this is the vocabulary they use. And they're usually contrasting that with some other tense. So maybe yesterday I played basketball, but right now I am not playing basketball. Okay? So if I could give you 100 examples, you would probably understand that very well, and you would understand it the same way a native does. It would be like intuitive, it would be understandable, it would be, again, I don't have like the perfect word for this. I don't know if anyone has thought of that yet, what we call this, like people talk about acquiring a language, but that doesn't really explain exactly what's happening. Like you are acquiring the language, but it doesn't make sense to people other than like learning something. The difference is just like, do you know something logically? So you're like, yeah, I understand how it works, but do you live that? Do you own that? Do you really understand that thing so you could use it fluently? That's the point. All right, let's let's see. What about those who have been horrible accent because they haven't been practicing speaking? Oh, you mean like they're in an accent so they can't speak? Most people don't speak because they sound horrible, even though they understand perfectly. There's a gap there. I mean, if you're talking about a person like their mouth broke or something, like, or their mouth is sewed shut, and they can't move their mouth, then yeah, like you could, like that could happen to me. Maybe I get, I don't know, punched in the face and I can't speak fluently. I can't actually express myself because I can't move my mouth. But that has nothing to do with my fluency. And I don't practice by moving my mouth. I practice by learning more. So I understand the language better as I learn more, not by me speaking. So it doesn't matter if I'm moving my mouth or not. All of the practice really comes from how you're learning, because if you don't understand, then you won't speak, even if you can move your mouth or not. All right, let's see. From Pakistan, I love your lectures. Glad to hear it, Soul. Let's see. I'm Brazilian, says Lucas. Nelson, hi, Drew. I like your way to teach English. Only listening can help you learn English, right? Yes, again, it's not like only listening. The point is, do you understand or not? All right, let me make this. So when people are saying you only need to listen to learn English, I wouldn't say that, because that's not how you learn your native language. Like if I only listen, it's like, imagine if I have like here's a lemon, like we'll put a little leaf on there just so it's like it's supposed to be a lemon, you know. Now I could describe this for you, and you could listen to me talking about what a lemon is, but it's much easier if you just taste it and experience it for yourself. All right? So listening by itself is not the only way you should be learning. You should learn in many ways. So there's the listening and speaking and even writing and reading. All those things are going to give you better understanding. And with better understanding comes the speech. All right? But the point of this video is showing that speaking really is the result of how you learn. It's not because you spoke first and that's how you got fluent. You speak because you're fluent. It's the opposite of what most people think is happening. All right, Sako again, and the other thing is native speakers short their conversations most of the time. Especially they are sometimes lazy to open their mouths to spit out the full word. Yeah. So the way people speak in the real world is different than how people speak in the classroom. And teachers aren't doing anything bad. They're just trying to make the language clear for you to understand. And usually that's because you only need to take some kind of written test in a classroom. You don't actually need to speak with natives to have, you know, get a good score on your test or something like that. Yes, you are true. That's why I want to learn more, especially the grammar, says Lord. Yeah, so remember, it's not about learning more grammar. It's just what situations do we use something in, and that's how you understand the grammar. And so don't worry about the grammar point names or whatever. I use those just so if people want to look them up, people can do that, but it's more about understanding why we use things. All right, Dylan says, what is the best way to learn vocabulary, and is it better to learn words individually or in context? What's effective? What to do with the student who didn't do homework? How to make that? I see. All right, so the best way to learn vocabulary, yes, is in context. You really want people to understand what they're learning and that they feel confident about, you know, that they understand something. So I like to make sure that there's some kind of discovery. Like you sound like a teacher or a parent or something. Maybe you're asking for somebody else, like how to teach, how to make kids, you know, actually do their work. But the actual process of learning some new vocabulary is quite easy when you make it understandable and then you give lots of examples. All right. So I want to. And again, it's tricky to explain this because I don't want you to just focus on the vocabulary itself, because the vocabulary is always connected to something else. So usually we begin with a situation like this. because that's what happens in our lives. Like something happens and then there's a way to describe that. But usually there are many ways to describe something. So if I could have, like, let's say, I don't know, I meet someone and I need some help. All right, so the situation is like, I got hurt, I need help. I could just say like, help. You know, I could yell that out to people, help. And this is, you know, in context because it's that situation. So I'm not focusing on the word help, I'm focusing on like, in what way do we do this? And so when we're watching a movie or something, usually we see that, like someone's yelling like, help, help me, help me. So I might hear like, help, help me. Or I might hear like, help, anyone. You know, so like, is anyone out there? Can anyone help me? Or depending on like the level of help, maybe it's just I need a favor from someone. Like, could you please help me do something? Like I'm lost, I don't know where the train station is, something like that. All right. Yeah, Eunice is SOS. So SOS is a little bit different from, you know, like that. But again, like you understand it from the situation and it's more memorable that way. But this is, it's like it's almost like a crossword. If you guys know a crossword puzzle. So if we have, usually, you know, there'll be like a word like this, and then there's another word here, and then another word like this, and then we might have, you know, something longer. And so there are letters in each of these, but they're all connected to each other. And so you might have like C-A, B, and then E-B-B, and B-A-G, and N-G-E-R, like that, something like that. And so all of these things are connected, and as you look at them, it's like, oh, look at that. Like at this point, I've got like this thing and that thing here. And this is, you know, just for vocabulary or for letters in this case. But the language works the same way when we're actually teaching. And so like in the example of helping someone, so first we have like, I'm yelling out for help, but I might also help someone. So we begin with the situation, and then we have help. But help could also be used in a different situation, and then here's a different vocabulary in a different situation like that. And so they're all connected to each other. All right. So when you're learning or you're trying to teach as a teacher, really the point is to focus on something and then give lots of examples of that thing, because that's better than like teaching like 10 vocabulary words that people don't really understand. Okay, so focus on something, make sure people can really understand it very well. That's why we do that in Fluent for Life, to make sure people really understand things. We spend a lot of time because we really want you to understand something like a native, and you only get that by spending time with the language and learning systematically. So it's not just taking a whole bunch of traditional English lessons, you need to understand it the same way natives do. All right, and again, the other question, what do we do with the student who didn't do homework? How would you make them? I don't know the exact situation. Like if this is in a classroom and your student didn't do it, I don't know. You could make them sit outside or do something else. But like remember that the job of the teacher is to make something easy to understand. And so if the student, like if they're not doing the homework because they don't understand what it is, then that's your fault as a teacher. And I don't mean like just you, but in general, it's the teacher's fault. Like it's my fault if I'm teaching something and people don't understand what I'm saying. That's my fault. It's not the student's fault. And so, you know, depending on the reason why the student isn't doing the homework, if they're just lazy or whatever, then, you know, maybe you can, and they have to do it, you know, find a reason for them to get it done. Maybe they get like you could reward them for doing a good job, or you could, you know, explain, yeah, you know, it's actually valuable for you to do this work, even if it doesn't seem like it is. You know, there's lots of things you could do. I don't want to get too much into detail about that without knowing the situation, but those are the kinds of things I would try. Lucas says connected words, again, shame again. A friend of mine told me I joined the spoken English classes. I asked her how they teach English. She told me Hindi to English. Then I gave her your video link and I told her she should stop that class. Well, Yes, remember, some people, they just need to learn the language to pass a test. And it doesn't matter if they actually can speak or understand fluently or not. So in some classes, it could be faster for those people to learn some vocabulary. Maybe they're really good at memorizing, and it'd give them a list of words in Hindi, and then here are the words in English, just memorize that for the test. But for the people who want to speak, you definitely do not want to learn that way. You want to be learning the same way a native does as with English as a first language. So take off your glasses and the plane took off. Yep, exactly all right. So again, these are two different things where the more connections you can make, the easier it is for the student to understand and think, oh, look at that. I took off the cap and I took off my glasses and the plane took off. It's actually, removed from the ground. So there's a disconnect happening there. All right, so the plane took off. Or you can say my career took off. We get even more figurative with the meaning of it. So I'm doing very well, something good is happening, something like that. So something takes off. Perhaps you should take some days off to visit other countries. I could. You could take off some days, that's right. Lord says, now, but just remember, Rand, not all, the vocabulary doesn't always mean the same thing. So there will be, some, the vocabulary will mean one thing in this situation, but it will mean something different in another situation. I love the way you teach us, says Lords. Lords, why? Why do you like the way I teach you? Let me know. I know people say that often, but Eunice says, I'm a beginner computer science teacher. Oh, well, make it fun, whatever it is. If you make it fun and understandable, then that's how they learn. I know a lot of people, they think making a class fun is you get gold stars or something, that's what they think gamification means. But it really means you just understand something intuitively. It's like a puzzle and you feel good. The puzzle itself can be challenging, but it's fun. And when you find the solution, you feel good about that. All right, that's why we designed Frederick to work that way. So it's like a puzzle that you discover. And as you go through the app, you really feel confident about learning because you understand it all. All right, let's see. All right, Andre, hello everyone, I'm from Brazil. Rose Official, learning method is that any book of methods for learning. Learn method is that any book of methods for learning English. I don't know what that means, Rose. Explain more. Daniel says, hi, this is the first time I catch up with your live streaming. Your class is helping me a lot in learning English. Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure. If you know other people who would benefit from the lessons, then let them know. Joseph says, can you learn a language in just a few months? Sure you could. Yeah. If you focus, but remember, remember that you learn a language in pieces. So when people talk about, if I'm going to teach you a new word or phrase or something like that, I can get you fluent in that phrase in a minute or 5 minutes or something. It doesn't take that long. And so you learn this piece of the language, and then you learn another piece and another piece and another piece. So you can become fluent in a language in the pieces of it, but I mean, you would probably not become fluent in the whole thing. I mean, that's not very, it's not really essential. It's not useful to do that because most of the vocabulary isn't used anyway. So if you look at regular newspapers and TV shows and regular conversations, it's I don't know, that's too big really, but it's about 2% of the total number of words that are in the language. Let's say, I think it's something like 170,000 words. I don't know the exact number, and new words are created all the time, but this is the number of words in common use that are in the English language, but very few of them are actually used in real conversations. All right, and so the word "the" is, I don't know, it's 7% of all printed text, something like that. People use the word "the." If you go back and listen to the, in even this one video, you'll hear it a lot. So all of those words here, if you just learn these different pieces of them, you can get fluent in the language very quickly. But you have to understand it like a native, you have to learn like a native, you have to get fluent the same way a native does. All right, that's what this video is really about. So instead of learning English as a second language, And the second language approach is what creates a lot of the problems people have because they don't really understand what they're learning, so they don't feel confident speaking. All right? Yeah. So only 2% of people can find Gaza on a map. Yeah, I'm sure like lots of people can't, I mean, they can't do all kinds of things. You know, that's not surprising for anything really. Moshe says, can we learn to speak without visiting an English-speaking country or meeting a native? Yeah, sure. And again, like the point is to get the native input. It's like right now, you're not actually visiting me, you're just listening to me speak. You're watching me, you're listening to me speak, but we're not sitting in the same room. You don't need to travel anywhere to watch this video. And there are lots of great videos just made for native speakers right on YouTube that you can watch. So the benefit of something like Fluent for Life, which is what my program is that I actually help you understand all of that in simple steps. But you could certainly try to learn by yourself and learn English as a first language by yourself, but you don't need to live in an English-speaking country, especially now with the internet and all of the connections and all of the materials that people have available. All you just learn like a native. That's all you do. Let's see. All right, Sam says, good idea, teacher, take some water with lemon. Yes, I need to get I don't have any lemon. But I do have some water. I think listening also improves your vocabulary. There are lots of instances I use words I heard subconsciously. Yes, so all these skills work together. The more you listen, the more input you get, the better you are. And that's what's really developing your fluency. The actual speaking is a very small part of that. So I'd actually like to do an experiment where I learn a language. If somebody could teach me the way I teach English, if someone could teach me a language, I would do that without speaking. And then after a week, I would start speaking just to show people how it works. All right, Nas says, what do you mean by I practice by learning more? I know people that learn a lot of English, but their pronunciation is horrible. It is difficult to understand them, even though they know a lot. So you have to, it's not about like what you know, it's how well do you know that information. So do you know that information like a native? Can you use the vocabulary? Do you understand it like a native? Or are you thinking about it through a translation, like a student would? So there's lots of people who know, a lot of people actually who watch my videos, they know a lot of English, but they still have trouble speaking confidently because they don't really feel confident about what they know. So they have lots of hesitation, lots of doubts about pronunciation or grammar or vocabulary, and that's what keeps them stuck. All right, so it's not about knowing the information, but the listening, the input that you get, and that can come from like you can get it from writing as well, which is a kind of output actually, but that's the actual practice that gets you fluent. So the practice comes from the information that helps you understand like a native. It's not from, and I really wish I had an even simpler explanation for this, but it's really just learn like a native. Now, the reason I don't just say people should learn like a native is because people just think that's unbelievable. So they're like, well, Drew, I can't learn like a native. Like I'm not a native. I don't live in America. I wasn't born in America or whatever. And I try not to use that, even though that's what I'm telling you to do. So when I say people should learn English as a first language, it's like learn the real language the same way a native would. That's what I'm talking about. And if you do that, it becomes much easier. But that's where the practice comes from. Jenny says, what about if we want to learn English as an academic purpose like TOEFL or IELTS? Do you have any suggestion about the learning method? No, you would learn it the same way. It's just if there's specific content you need to learn, because especially if you have like a speaking component, and I think you do for IELTS, then you would need to be able to communicate, the same way. So what I tell people to do, they would learn English as a first language, and that will help you for anything. It will help you in your job. It will help you on IELTS. It doesn't matter what you're doing. But often people who are learning English as a second language, the traditional way, they can only take some written test, and they can't enjoy communicating people with their coworkers or whatever, or their spouse or somebody like that, or to get better jobs or anything. So my way is the way that natives learn, and that's why they become fluent speakers. So it doesn't matter if you're learning English for a test or for a job or to communicate in your everyday life. It's all learning the same way that will get you there. Liz says, I struggle to speak in English even though I know the word, I understood the question, but I don't know how to reiterate my thoughts. Yeah, and so a lot of that, it comes from learning English as a second language. So if you know things, but you have trouble putting it all together, it's because you're still learning English as a second language. You're still not understanding it like a native would. So a native, it's automatic. It's easy because they've just gotten so many examples, they've mastered it without even thinking about it, all right? So that's how you need to learn. Yes, I'm a teacher still learning methods. I see. Let's see, SOS. All right, Moses says, can we watch mixed Australian videos, plus American videos and British videos? Yeah, and that's what we do in Fluent for Life. So you listen to Australian speakers and American and British, and even within those different countries, you've got different accents. So you need to hear lots of different people because even in the United States, you will have British speakers and Australian English and Canadians that speak a little bit different. So again, it's important to be prepared for all of that. Sana says, I'm getting better, but need to practice more on daily speaking. Sana, no, you don't. Again, like people think that you need to practice speaking. I think maybe I can try to do this in a different way. But people have been told for so many years that you need to practice speaking to get fluent. But even though they keep practicing, they don't get fluent. So there's something wrong with that. Something wrong. So let's just look at a typical learner. So we'll just put, let's see, like a learner, like an adult English learner versus a native. And let's just look at what's different between these two things. So both of them are learning. Let's just say learn. And this native is also learning new things all the time. And they might, like, let's say both of these people live in the United States, just for this example. So live in U.S., same thing. Live in the United States, and like they speak every day. Speak every day over here again, same thing. So speak. So both of these things are learning. They're living in the U.S. They're both speaking. Let's say they're both young. They're like, I don't know. Let's say 20 years old. Maybe some people don't think that's young. I think it's young now. So they're both 20 years old, and let's see, like has a girlfriend, and same thing over here. So both of them have a girlfriend. And so looking at all these things, like all these things are the same, but the learner is not fluent and the native is. Why? So what's really different about these things? So both of them have a girlfriend, they're the same age, they both get some speaking every day, but clearly the learner is not speaking as well as the native. And they both live in the United States, so they spend time around the United States, like people speaking English probably. But how they learn is the real difference here. So you can be in the United States and speak and be young and have a girlfriend and still not be fluent because of how you learn. Okay? So the native is in the United States and is young and has a girlfriend or whatever, and they speak fluently. The only real difference is this one. It's how they learn. So if they are both in the United States and they're both young and they both even, have like some kind of speaking every day, but a lot of people don't spend their time speaking all day. Some people, maybe they go to work and they're just typing on a computer all day. They don't actually spend a lot of time speaking. Maybe they speak with their family in the morning and at night, and they have a lunch break or something, but people aren't just talking all day. So let's say they get the same amount of time speaking. But it's because of how they learn that changes everything about how they speak. All right, so the difference here, like it's the same thing. They both live in the United States, they both speak, they're both 20 years old, they both have a native English-speaking girlfriend, but how they learn is different. They understand the language differently, and so that's why they use it. All right? So like when people say like, I have no one to talk with, it doesn't matter if you have people to talk with or not. When I came to Japan, I spent about a year living in Japan, living with Japanese people, trying to speak every day, even though I didn't feel comfortable speaking. And the problem was because how I learned. That's why I couldn't communicate. All right? So it's not that I didn't need more speaking practice. How is more speaking practice going to help me? It won't. And the reason is because speaking doesn't help you learn anything. It's just using what you know. When you speak, the only way you learn something is by hearing things from other people. So in a conversation, I'm saying something. I'm not learning any new information from myself, but I'm hearing that from other people. So the other person I'm speaking with is helping me understand new things. That's where I'm getting new information from. All right? And if that's true, then I don't need to speak then. I really just need to get that, like hear other people speak. I need to listen to other people speaking, and that's how I improve. All right, but I don't like improve more by repeating vocabulary. Like let's say I learned the word marker in Japanese, and I just like repeat marker, marker, marker again and again and again. Maka, maka, maka. I could repeat that, but I'm not really improving my ability to communicate much. I'm not, because I'm not learning anything new from the output. It's the input that's actually teaching me something. So I'd rather hear like 10 other people say marker, and that's what's going to help me really develop my pronunciation. Okay? So the main difference here, when people are like, well, I really need somebody to speak with, you don't. It's nice if you have somebody, but speaking is the result of how you learn. It's not the way to get fluent. It's because you are fluent, you feel confident speaking. So fluency, if you like think about fluency as like, wow, I really understand something very well, so I can speak about that thing. Okay? So if both of these people, the native and the learner, everything else is the same, it's really just the difference in the way they're learning. So if the learner learns the same way that a native does, they will become fluent also. They would have to. Of course they would. Everybody gets fluent the same way. All right? So stop worrying about needing a person to speak with, because that's not going to help you learn more. And many people are trying to speak already. So you don't need to learn more or to speak more. You just need to learn the right way. Okay? Hopefully this is clear. Again, I've spent years trying to explain this to people, and I still don't feel I have it like perfectly simplified. So I'd love if someone can take what I'm saying and say, oh, like, this is what you mean, and then I get it. All right, yeah. So don't worry about like finding people to practice speaking with. It's like the thing you find after you've already learned, and you can improve by yourself for that reason. Sita, hello, nice to see you there. All right, please, dear friends, give Drew likes. It helps a lot. Drew does a great work here every week. He deserves our likes. Well, thank you very much. He deserves, yes. All right, Drew's the best teacher ever. Well, I don't know about the best teacher ever, but I appreciate that. Tsubasa says, Ohio. Ohio gozaimasu. Nice to see you there. Ganshem again. Yesterday, I watched your How to Make Espresso video, and afterwards I watched other videos on how to make espresso. I learned a lot of those videos, yeah. So you learn a lot from those videos. And of course, like, it makes sense. Like, if you're understanding like a native, you're like, ah, look at that. I continue to get more. You really build up the fluency in layers as you learn more and more. But that's how natives are doing it. And that's what you are also doing in your native language as you learn. How do you think about, or you said, what do I think about Justin Bieber? He just posted a wrong photo of Israel and said, pray for Israel, but it's actually a photo of Gaza. Just wondering, can some famous people even find Gaza on the map? Well, I mean, there's a lot of information that's probably like either inaccurate or like lies about stuff. Not just about like this recent situation, but about all kinds of things. But yes, in general, people talk about things that they don't know much about, sadly. Let's see, Dilnoza says, being strict for students, does it matter for a teacher? Because some students prefer a strict teacher, but I'm naturally gentle. kind of is difficult for me to be strict. I mean, if you make the lesson fun and the students actually enjoy learning, you don't really need to be strict about anything. It just help people learn and make it fun. And the fun comes from them actually learning something. It's not just like I often see math problems, like you do a math problem and you get a point. It's like, that's not really fun. You're trying to take something boring and giving it like a fun, like a fun reward, but that's not actually making the learning itself fun. Let's see. I'm at work now. It's the night where I live. Let's see. Jesus is there. Oh my goodness. What is the method you use to teach English? Could you please give us an example? Please, yes. So here it is. Take off the cap. Put on the cap. Take off the shirt. Put on the shirt. Take off the eraser. Put on the eraser. That's one very simple example of how I'm taking one thing, giving you lots of examples of it. And that's one example, one situation. And that learning in different ways, I call that naturally varied review, because you need to be prepared for all of these different situations in a real conversation. You need to be prepared for real, like native speakers that have different pronunciation, or that maybe they don't speak clearly, or they use different vocabulary, but that's how you do it. Let's see here. So obviously, like in something like Fluent for Life, we go in a lot more detail and cover many more topics, but that's the basic idea, to help you understand like a native. I remember the time when I found Drew's videos on YouTube. It was a good time for me. Glad to hear emotion. A myriad of examples for the same situation. Yeah. So that's one, it's getting examples, but it's also just understanding them like a native. So I could give you, I could tell you a grammar point, and like you would probably get it with enough examples, but if I teach you well, you can understand it sooner. That's really the value of a good teacher. Ness says, have you thought about doing an Instagram live stream? I've done some Instagram lives. You can find those on there. You could add one subscriber at a time and have a conversation about their questions. That would be a more enjoyable experience. Yes, I've done that also. I think I can actually do that on YouTube as well, possibly. But usually we get like a lot of people on these, on these videos. YouTube is enough for him, I guess. Yeah, but I'm on Instagram. I haven't posted anything on there for a while. Like part of that is because I can make a YouTube video and more people will find that more easily than finding something on Instagram. Instagram is kind of like something enjoyable for the moment, but YouTube is a resource for people, so they will go to YouTube and be able to search for things easily and find the videos later. I recommend y'all watch Wild and Out. I'm sure y'all going to improve a lot just by listening to how different natives speak. Yep, you can get information from lots of different sources, TV shows, movies, that kind of thing, but it's nice if you can understand it again. All right. Yes, again, like listening, it's not just like listening. I want to make it clear. Listening by itself is not the only thing you need. The point is to understand, and part of that understanding comes from listening. But part of it comes from watching things too. Like you need to connect as many things as you can. See what time it is. All right, Abdul Zamad, I struggle speaking long sentences without mispronouncing a word. When I want to say a long sentence with multiple words, I might just mispronounce a word. And once that happens, it's crazy. Yeah, so try to speak more clearly and slowly with smaller sentences and build up your ability to do that. And also get more examples of those kinds of sentences. And that will help you understand those as well. So what we do in Fluent for Life, we have a lesson or a lesson type about this specific issue. And this is where we take a sentence and kind of build it up over time. Learning is a natural process, but in the very near future, we can make it unnaturally easy. Well, we'll see. It might be possible for you to plug a wire into your brain and understand something. That would be cool. I would love to do that if that was possible, yeah. Speaking as a result, when you understand extremely well, but people often just go outside and speak, even though someone who doesn't know anything, why would they suggest nonsense things? Well, again, like lots of people think that you need to speak. It sounds like the reasonable thing to do. Like, if I want to learn how to ride a bicycle, I should ride a bicycle. If I want to learn how to, I don't know, play baseball, I should go play baseball. But speaking is a different kind of process where if you don't understand something, you won't feel confident speaking. And that confidence is very important because humans generally are nervous about making mistakes in front of other people. So you really need to, like, because you could have people, like if I could remove that part of your brain where you have no fear, then you would just go out and just say whatever you like and maybe people don't understand, but you don't really care. And so it's important to actually understand what you're saying, to be able to communicate confidently, and to know what you mean. Like, it's, like if you don't really understand something, then you won't feel confident using it. That's really the problem. Fia says, hello from Angkor Wat. Paladin says, good morning, I'm from India, and your way of teaching how to speak English is really awesome. Glad to hear it. I recommend you, says Lucas. Glad to hear it. Greetings from Chihuahua, Mexico. All right, let's see. It's great to be with you. And Asaf, hello, teacher. Do you have private classes? No, I do not. I answered this earlier, but I'll answer it very quickly again. The reason I don't offer private lessons is because you really need to get lots of examples from many different native speakers in order to become fluent and to prepare yourself for real conversations. All right. So if you only listen to me, you will get used to the sound of my voice. So you really need to listen to many different natives. This is why we put that in Fluent for Life. So it's actually a much better use of your time to go through Fluent for Life rather than to learn with me personally or, you know, like any other individual teacher. All right, let's see, Thai from Vietnam, nice to see you there. Jesus again, my experience learning English as a Mexican is that we try to pronounce each and every word in a sentence and then notice that there are lots of reduced sounds. Yeah, it becomes our reference, connected words, yeah. All right, I think people are getting it, but we've gotten to the end of comments, which is nice because I don't have to keep talking. I'm gonna pass out over here in just a moment. So yes, I'm still always thinking about what is the best way that I can explain to people, and George is there, the beginning and the end. Nice to see George there. So I'm always thinking about what is the best way to explain that. It's really about, like, you know something so well, we say we know it like the back. I know it like the back of my hand, all right? Like I know it so well, it's just it's automatic, it's easy for me. And you get that by getting all the different examples, learning like a native, understanding like a native, and because you have that understanding, you speak. So don't worry about trying to speak first. I'll make this very clear for this last section just to talk about what we talked about. The traditional way that people are learning, usually you begin with learning something. But because you don't understand, so to say, don't understand, you don't speak. Don't speak. And because you don't speak, all you can really do is learn more, and then you just continue this process again and again. But notice, we have learning first, and then we have trouble with communication, so we don't speak. But when you're learning English, so this is learning English as a second language, but when you're learning English as a first language, again, it's the same process of learning. So we start with learning over here, and then I understand, or just put a U here for understand, and because I understand, I speak. So speaking is the result of this process. You begin with learning, and that takes you to speech. We don't begin with speech. You don't learn anything from speech. You learn things just by hearing lots of examples of natives doing that because that's the only way you can learn. You don't learn from speaking. How does speaking build your fluency? How would that happen? But you do learn a lot from hearing lots of different people speak. Pretty simple. All right, let's see, final comments here. Thanks for your willingness to take learners out of the running wheel. Yes. The hamster wheel that people get stuck on. Long time ago, I was Chinese. Now I'm a complete Japanese. I forgot all of my Chinese from a Japanese funny game. All right, sound very low. Says okay. Yeah, maybe turn up your volume. Again, Sham, some days ago I watched the video. I don't remember that video. After the video, I commented, I wrote what you do think about EFL, and naturally very review didn't reply me. Well, I get lots of comments, so don't feel bad or offended if I don't respond to everyone, but thank you for leaving comments. Again, Sham, you especially, you know what's going on, you know how you should be learning, so feel free to tell other people and just say, hey, let's see. And so I don't know if that's talking about a video I did or somebody else's video. But yes, telling more people learn English as a first language. And they're like, oh, what is that? It just means understanding like a native. All right. Sandra says, thanks again. Take care. And Giselle says, hi, teacher. And I think that's a good time to stop. But thank you all for joining me. Remember, keep learning English as a first language if you want to speak fluently. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.